What's happening around the world?
And what's happening here at home?
Good evening, this is Primetime News and I'm Sandru Ferdinando.
And I'm Umitra Beko. Let's take a look at your headlines for tonight.
The headlines on Newsfirst.
Nanda Malani, the voice of the nation, falls silent at 82. Sajid's attempt to gather all 225 MPs before BASL representatives fail. BASL declines meeting sought by Sajid Premadasa. BASL tells Sajid government made threatening statements. Sajid and Ajit Pereira back claim. Government accuses MP Kaviratna of targeting Chief Justice under parliamentary privilege. Indictment served on Yoshita Rajapaksa and Vasantha Karanagoda.
On to your top story tonight. Sri Lanka has lost one of its greatest cultural treasures with the passing of Dr. Nanda Malani, the legendary singer whose voice became the soundtrack of generations and whose music helped shape the country's artistic and social consciousness. She was 82 years old at the time of her passing.
Her mortal remains will be placed at the Nanda Malani Music Ashram in Vijayaba Mavtha Nugegota tomorrow at 10 a.m. for the public to pay their respects. And final rites will take place the following day at 5 p.m. at the General Cemetery in Borella.
Her remarkable vocal talent, but her ability to give voice to the hopes, struggles, dreams and emotions of ordinary people. Her songs were never just melodies. They were stories, reflections and social commentaries that resonated across generations. Generations of Sri Lankans grew up listening to Nanda Malani's music. Her songs echoed through family homes, radio broadcasts, concert halls and national events, accompanying moments of joy, sorrow, reflection and celebration. With her passing, Sri Lanka bids farewell to a musical giant. But her legacy remains immeasurable. The songs she gifted to the nation will continue to inspire, comfort and unite people for generations to come. Though the voice has fallen silent, the music of Nanda Malani will echo forever through Sri Lanka's history.
In more local news, opposition leader Sajid Premadasa's attempt to convene all 225 members of parliament before representatives of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka to explain concerns regarding the proposal to extend the retirement age of Superior Court judges failed today. The development came after the Bar Association declined to participate in the meeting following strong objections raised by the government yesterday, which maintained that the opposition leader's initiative was contrary to the established parliamentary procedures.
The Bar Association of Sri Lanka communicated its decision to the opposition leader Sajid Premadasa through a letter. However, a separate controversy has since emerged over a statement contained in that correspondence which referred to what the BASL described as a position of the government express threat.
The letter, dated 19th of August and signed by President of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka, Rajiv Amarasuriya, to opposition leader Sajid Premadasa. Here is an extract of the letter.
However, in light of the proceedings in Parliament today, the 19th of August 2026, and the position the government expressed threat, there appears to be no consensus on the same nor interest presently by the government to provide this opportunity to its members of Parliament. Whilst the opposition has already voiced its vehement objection to the proposed constitutional amendment, this briefing would have been most useful to government members of Parliament to objectively consider their approach to the same.
End of extract. Raising the issue in Parliament, Dr. Jayatissa questioned what exactly constituted the alleged threat referred to in the BASL letter. Responding to the issue, opposition leaders Sajith Premadasa and Samagi Janabalawege MP and Attorney-at-Law Ajith P. Pereira stated that they agreed with the Bar Association of Sri Lanka's view.
In light of the proceedings in Parliament today, that is 19/8/2026, and the position of the government expressed threat. Parliamentary Sabhanayakavaraya.
The leader of the House has commented on parliamentary traditions and procedures, and this letter describes those comments as a threat. As a threat from the government. Deputy Speaker, we need to determine how appropriate it is in terms of parliamentary traditions and procedures for the President of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka to describe the explanation provided by the Leader of the House on parliamentary procedure as a threat and to refer to it as a threat from the government. Members of Parliament express different views and there was absolutely no threat at that point. We simply explained what the established procedure was. I do not think it is appropriate in terms of parliamentary tradition and democratic practice for an organization such as the Bar Association to write to the opposition leader describing such proceedings as a threat expressed by the government. This was not a personal invitation from me, nor do I have the authority to issue such an invitation. I acted simply as a facilitator. I requested that, through the Speaker, all 225 members of Parliament be invited to participate. They referred to position of the government expressed threat. That very clearly indicates that the Bar Association had perceived a threatening position or conduct on the part of the government. I agree with that assessment. I will have this letter entered into the Hansard and tabled in Parliament because the President of the Bar Association has clearly referred to a government expressed threat and to threatening actions by the government. I endorse the contents of this letter. I have been a senior member of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka for 34 years and I am serving my third term as a member of Parliament. If the Bar Association felt that the Leader of the House ridiculed them yesterday or that certain members of Parliament had made statements that could be perceived as threats, then they are entitled to express that view and describe it as a threat. At no point previously have we seen a situation where a statement made or a matter raised in Parliament has been characterized as a threat and then presented in a letter that is subsequently released to the media. Honorable Opposition Leader, you are entitled to express that view. I have not raised an issue with the fact that your position happens to be the same as that expressed by the Bar Association. However, as far as I know, there has never been a parliamentary tradition of interpreting the presentation of a particular position or procedure as a threat. What we did yesterday was simply explain the relevant rule and procedure. You are free to discuss the matter at the opposition leader's office or anywhere else. What we presented yesterday was simply the established rule.
I
disagree with Minister Nalinda Jayatissa's statement. While he may say that the opposition leader can express such an opinion, I reject the suggestion that the President of the Bar Association cannot express his views based on how he perceives the situation. I would also like to make one point. Sajith Premadasa and Rajiv Amarasuriya are both citizens of this country. The Constitution, as the supreme law of the country, provides that all citizens must be treated equally. We are actually grateful to the opposition leader for his efforts to enhance the knowledge of government MPs by bringing in representatives from various organizations to educate us. If there is a need to educate all 225 members of Parliament, I believe such a request should be made to the Honourable Speaker or directly to the government. There is a party whip, there is myself, and there is also the Prime Minister. In Instead, the opposition leader chose to have this professional organization educate government MPs through him. Perhaps he has come to understand that the opposition leader is actually working on behalf of the government.
Conflicting explanations have emerged regarding a controversial reference contained in a letter sent by the Bar Association of Sri Lanka to opposition leader Sajith Premadasa. When Newsfirst contacted BASL President Rajiv Amarasuriya at 1:10 p.m, his response was, quote, "Take the contents of the letter, call later for further details," end quote. Later at 2:06 p.m, when Newsfirst sought clarification from BASL Secretary Nanda de Silva, he stated, quote, "The letter does not refer to any threatening statement made by the government," end quote. Meanwhile, at 3:33 p.m, Dinamina reported that Rajiv Amarasuriya had indicated the wording may have been, quote-unquote, "thereat," rather than, quote-unquote, "threat." Following that development, Newsfirst again contacted BASL Secretary Nanda de Silva at 4:09 p.m. for clarification. During that discussion, he responded, quote, "Threat is the correct word. Rajiv told Dinamina that it should be corrected," end quote. Subsequently, at 4:33 p.m, Dinamina reported that Rajiv Amarasuriya had again contacted the newspaper and clarified that the word was not, quote-unquote, "thereat," but rather, quote-unquote, "threat," meaning a threat. The letter was issued as an official communication bearing the signature of the President of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka and was addressed to the opposition leader of Parliament. Should the President of one of the country's leading professional bodies be sending letters on a matter as important as constitutional amendment without being able to provide a clear and a definitive explanation of its contents?
Meanwhile, as the Bar Association of Sri Lanka described statements made by the government in Parliament as threatening in a letter, opposition MP Rohini Kaviratne used parliamentary privilege today to criticise the Chief Justice. Government MPs questioned the remarks, calling on the Bar Association to clarify its position on the statements made by the MP Rohini Kaviratne as well.
I raised an issue in this House regarding media reports concerning Chief Justice P.P. Surasena. When I asked that the matter be corrected, the member presiding over the session said my statement was false. Was any inquiry or investigation conducted? Did he make that statement responsibly? My remarks were removed from the record without proper justification. I maintain that he is not fit to occupy that chair. There are also serious concerns regarding the Express Pearl case, in which the country reportedly lost $1 billion. There are also reports that the London TNI Club has written to the President seeking his intervention. A decision delivered by a 5-member bench, including former Chief Justice Murdo Fernando, was subsequently reduced by a 3-member bench, resulting in the country losing an opportunity to recover $1 billion. Yet today, we are speaking in defense of the Chief Justice concerned. A YouTube channel called Darkroom has raised questions about information allegedly missing from KDU records, a marriage certificate and the birth certificates of his children. If these claims are false, they should be corrected. Otherwise, Deputy Speaker, a serious question arises. Is the Chief Justice being blackmailed by the President because of information allegedly found in his birth certificate? Is he being threatened with imprisonment for allegedly preparing fraudulent documents or being pressured to deliver court rulings in a particular manner? I am raising these questions because such concerns are now emerging in society. As female members of Parliament, we are ashamed of the remarks made by MP Rohini Kaviratne. Who exactly was she insulting? We have a constitutional council that has the authority to make appointments to the judiciary. The judges serving on the Supreme Court, including the Chief Justice, were appointed through that constitutional process. They were not appointed solely by the executive or by any individual political party. These appointments were made through the Constitutional Council with the collective consent of its members. Yet, within that framework, MP Rohini Kaviratne has used her parliamentary privileges to make allegations based on claims circulated on various YouTube channels. It is deeply regrettable that she has attempted to ridicule, insult and undermine the judiciary. Parliamentary privileges do not give members the right to bring the judiciary into disrepute. We also want to know the position of the Bar Association regarding this alleged abuse of parliamentary privilege. I propose that these remarks be removed immediately. Once they are removed from the Hansard, they should not be reproduced on YouTube and presented as statements made in Parliament.
The government has repeatedly removed matters raised by MP Rohini Kaviratne from the Hansard. That is not what should be done. When a member raises an issue in Parliament, it should be heard and the necessary action should be taken. If the government believes it is necessary, we propose that a parliamentary select committee be appointed to examine the matters raised by her in this House.
Select committee පත් කළා එතුමිය මේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ කියන කාරණා පිළිබඳව අධ්‍යයනය කරන්න. දීකිරට බලල්ලු සාක්ෂිය තමයි දැන් ඒගොල්ලෝ නේද අපි යාළුවෝනේ.
They are all friends after all. And now even Nama Rajapaksa has endorsed her position. We are therefore asking the Bar Association to clarify its position regarding the remarks made by the Honourable Member of Parliament.
නීතිඥ සංගමේ ස්ථාවරය කියන්නේ මන්ත්‍රීවරියක් කතා කරලා මේ 83 ස්ථාවර නියෝගය අනුව
After a member makes a statement in Parliament under Standing Order 83.1 that is not permitted under the rules, the established procedure must be followed. The appropriate action is to remove the statement from the Hansard. When remarks are made that insult or discredit the Chief Justice, the procedure is not to investigate the matter and then debate it further. The established procedure is to remove those remarks from the record. If members do not even understand this basic procedure, then it raises questions about their understanding of Parliament. If you cannot understand something as fundamental as this, there's little point in coming to Parliament for 5-minute speeches. It shows a complete lack of understanding of parliamentary procedure.
නෑ මේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුව ගැන කිසිම අවබෝධයක් උඩ නෑ.
A letter from the Bar Association of Sri Lanka to the leader of opposition alleges that the government has made threatening statements in relation to a constitutional amendment. At the same time, an opposition MP criticised the Chief Justice in Parliament using information that had circulated on social media while being protected by parliamentary privilege. Meanwhile, allegations have emerged that former President Wickremesinghe misled the courts. At the same time, Wickremesinghe has warned that Sri Lanka could once again face bankruptcy. What are these developments? What exactly are these statements? At a time when people across the country were making enormous sacrifices and carrying significant burdens in an effort to recover from the economic crisis, former President Wickremesinghe undertook a private overseas trip using 16.6 million rupees in public funds. Following investigations into that visit, Wickremesinghe was arrested and produced before court. His side maintained that the trip, undertaken on the 22nd and 23rd of September 2023, had been made pursuant to an official invitation. However, several days ago, the official website of the Government of the United Kingdom published the list of foreign leaders who had carried out official visits during that period. According to that list, no official visit by an individual named Ranil Wickremesinghe took place in the United Kingdom on those dates. As a result, allegations have now been raised that Ranil Wickremesinghe may have misled the court. Meanwhile, on Tuesday, Wickremesinghe publicly stated that Sri Lanka does not currently possess sufficient reserves to meet debt repayments due after 2028. The Deputy Minister of Finance responded immediately, alleging that Wickremesinghe was misleading the public by presenting complicated economic data that ordinary citizens would struggle to understand. The Deputy Minister further emphasized that the government has no difficulty in meeting its debt repayment obligations. If the claims being made by Ranil Wickremesinghe were accurate, the first place such concerns would be reflected would be the Colombo Stock Exchange. A look at market activity over the past several days shows that trading has continued in a normal manner. Daily transactions continue to take place without disruption. This is not the first time Ranil Wickremesinghe has been accused of engaging in such conduct. Whenever he has been out of power, he has sought to create negative perceptions about Sri Lanka internationally. A similar allegation surfaced through a diplomatic cable dated 12th of June 2007, later revealed by WikiLeaks. At the time, Sri Lanka was engaged in an intense war. The public was facing significant hardships. International assistance was considered critically important to the country. A donor group co-chaired by the United States and Japan was considering further assistance to Sri Lanka. According to the WikiLeaks disclosure, Ranil Wickremesinghe had informed Japanese Special Envoy Yasushi Akashi, who was serving as a co-chair of the donor group, that economic assistance to Sri Lanka should be suspended. Here is an excerpt from the cable released by WikiLeaks.
In response to a private exhortation by opposition leader Wickremesinghe for Japan to suspend its economic assistance, Akashi told Wickremesinghe and later reiterated publicly that the Sri Lankan people should not be punished for acts of commission and omission by their leaders.
Many more examples could be cited. Meanwhile, the European Union's GSP Plus concession granted to Sri Lanka is due to expire next year. That concession remains critically important to Sri Lanka's economy, particularly its export sector. The European Union is currently in the process of assessing whether the GSP Plus concession should be renewed. It is against this backdrop that Ranil Wickremesinghe is warning that the country is heading towards economic collapse. The Bar Association is alleging that the government has made threatening statements, and a member of parliament is criticizing the Chief Justice in Parliament. We once again remind viewers that the people of this country are intelligent and sensitive to such developments.
These are the views expressed by the joint opposition at a media briefing convened today.
මේ සංශෝධනය ගෙනාපු වෙලාව ඉඳලම අපි දැක්කා මේක පිටිපස්සේ අපි දැක්කා සජිත් ප්‍රේමදාසව කොහොමද මෙහෙවන්නේ නාමල් රජබස්සව කොහොමද මෙහෙවන්නේ එතකොට වර්තමාන නීතිච්ඡ සංගමේ සභාපතිවරයා කොහොමද මෙහෙවන්නේ මේ තුන් කට්ටුවම මෙහෙවන්නේ අපි දන්නවා රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ කියලා අපි දන්නවා රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මහත්තයාට බරපතල ප්‍රශ්නයක්.
From the very beginning, when this amendment was introduced, we saw what was happening behind the scenes. We know who is directing Sajith Premadasa, who is directing Namal Rajapaksa, and who is directing the current president of the Bar Association. We know that all three are being directed by former President Ranil Wickremesinghe. We also know that Wickremesinghe is facing serious allegations relating to the alleged misuse of funds. If charges are filed and he is ultimately convicted and sentenced by a court, it would be a historic moment in Sri Lanka, the first time a former executive president has been punished through the judicial system. We have also seen the current president of the Bar Association acting entirely in line with the interests of the Samagi Jana Balawegaya, the United National Party and Ranil Wickremesinghe. We have seen media and social media footage of him associating closely with Ranil Wickremesinghe. You can see this footage. This is Ranil Wickremesinghe. You can see him with a Havana cigar. The president of the Bar Association, Rajiv Amarasuriya, is also here alongside Ranil Wickremesinghe. All of them are friends who come from the same school and the same class. It is now clear that efforts are being made to protect Ranil Wickremesinghe and that this entire matter has been turned into a political agenda. The current government and the president came to power promising the people that those responsible for corruption and for creating a corrupt system of governance would be punished. If the existing laws are insufficient to punish them, new laws must be introduced. The Bar Association should not be operating to protect a former leader simply because he closely associates the members of the association. This amendment was brought forward based on a mandate given by the people. The president sought that mandate from the public and the government must now act in accordance with the mandate it received.
දීපු පොරොන්දුව මත මහජනතාව ඡන්දය ලැබලා දුන්නා මේ කාරණා ඉෂ්ට කරන්න කියලා ජනාධිපතිවරයා වරමක් ඉල්ලුවා ඒ වරමට ප්‍රකාරව කටයුතු කළා තින්නේ.
Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa's son Yoshita Rajapaksa and former Navy Commander Vasantha Karanangoda were today served with indictments before the Colombo High Court in connection with corruption allegations.
Following the handing over of the indictments, Colombo High Court Judge Ravindra Premaratna ordered that the two accused be released on separate bail conditions, each furnishing two sureties of 10 million rupees. The court also imposed a foreign travel ban on both the defendants.
The indictments relate to allegations that during the period between the 1st of September 2006 and the 8th of June 2007, while serving as commander of the Sri Lanka Navy, Basanta Karannagoda improperly facilitated Yoshitha Rajapaksa's participation in a training program at the Royal Navy College in the United Kingdom, causing a loss to the state. Yoshitha Rajapaksa has been indicted on allegations that he obtained an undue benefit as a result of that arrangement. The case is scheduled to be taken up again on the 17th of September for the pre-trial conference. The Colombo Chief Magistrate's Court today ordered the release on bail of Shashi Veeravansa, the wife of former Minister Vimal Veeravansa, who had been convicted and sentenced to imprisonment under the Immigration and Emigration Act in connection with obtaining an irregular foreign passport. The case was taken up today before Colombo Chief Magistrate Asanga S. Bodharagama for the delivery of the judgment. During proceedings, the Chief Magistrate noted that after being found guilty on charges under the Immigration and Emigration Act, the accused had been sentenced in 2022 to 2 years imprisonment and fined 100,000 rupees. The Chief Magistrate further observed that an appeal filed by her against that conviction had subsequently been dismissed by the Colombo High Court. Counsel appearing on behalf of Shashi Veeravansa informed court that his client had filed an appeal before the Supreme Court challenging the High Court judgment. The lawyer further stated that the appeal will be taken up in the Supreme Court on the 22nd of September for support and requested that his client be released on bail until then. Having considered the submissions, the Chief Magistrate ordered that she be released on bail. The case was fixed to be called again on the 27th of September.
The Colombo Chief Magistrate Court today ordered that the 4 private bank employees and the businessman arrested in connection with the alleged illegal transfer of approximately $1 billion overseas under the guise of importing goods be further remanded until the 3rd of September. The Colombo Chief Magistrates Court also directed the Financial Crimes Investigation Division of the Criminal Investigation Department to conduct a full investigation and submit a comprehensive report to court if there are any other parties responsible for the alleged offences under the relevant laws and regulations.
Investigating officers told court that the first suspect in the case, Jeffrey Mohammed, had allegedly established 36 shell companies using the names of 8 individuals and through those entities carried out 199 telegraphic transfers, illegally remitting more than $1 billion overseas. Investigators further alleged that the 4 bank employees had aided and abetted the operation. Investigators also informed court that information relating to funds allegedly received by the 4 bank officials from the first suspect in exchange for facilitating the transactions has been referred to Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption for further investigation. According to investigators, steps have already been taken to file indictments against the first suspect in the Colombo High Court under the Poisons, Opium and Dangerous Drugs Ordinance as well as the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. They further stated that the suspect had allegedly deposited more than 6.5 million rupees believed to have been earned through narcotics trafficking into a business account operated in the name of one of his companies. Counsel appearing for the suspects requested court to release their clients on suitable bail conditions. However, after considering the submissions, the Chief Magistrate ruled that granting bail at this stage could interfere with the ongoing investigation and ordered that all suspects be further remanded. The case is scheduled to be called again on the 3rd of September.
Weather first.
The National Disaster Relief Services Centre says that over 80,000 people across 7 districts have been affected by the prevailing El Nino conditions.
Onil Kamaratunga brings us the details.
Yes, thank you, Sandaru and Amitra. Now, according to the National Disaster Relief Services Centre, 81,605 people belonging to 25,563 families across 22 divisional secretariat divisions in 7 districts have been affected by the prevailing El Nino conditions. These districts are Ampara, Batiklu, Munaragala, Badulla, Hambantota, Ratnapura and Polonnaruwa. The National Disaster Relief Services Centre further stated that necessary guidelines have been issued to the district secretaries to manage and respond to this disaster situation.
A media briefing was held today at the Government Information Department to brief the public on the potential impacts of the El Nino phenomenon on the country and the government's preparedness to face it.
An El Nino phenomenon can last for about 13 to 14 months, impacting our climate patterns. It tends to increase rainfall during intermonsoons and decrease it during others. However, we cannot predict what will happen solely based on El Nino. We also consider other influences occurring in the Indian Ocean. Throughout the coming 10 days in August and the entire month of September, we expect a lower rainfall condition. However, in October and November, we will receive above average rainfall. This situation will last till December. The northeast monsoon begins in December, and we expect heavy rains in December, particularly in areas like the northern, eastern and north-central provinces.
Will the El Nino situation hinder water release for upcoming agricultural activities?
Including 29 schemes that receive water from Mahaweli, we have a total of 79 schemes covering approximately 350,000 acres, and we have the capacity to start the Maha season right on schedule based on the current water capacity in the reservoirs. As for the remaining area, which is a shortfall of another 400,000 to 450,000 acres, we do face a certain deficit. However, if we receive the expected rainfall by the end of September and during October, we will be able to carry out those cultivation activities without any issues.
Weather first.
Sri Lanka has emerged as South Asia's most favoured nation in major Pew Research Centre survey. Here's a look.
Sri Lanka has emerged as the most positively viewed country in South Asia, according to a new study by the Pew Research Centre that examined public attitudes across the region. The research surveyed public opinion in Bangladesh, India, Pakistan and Sri Lanka, asking respondents how they viewed neighbouring countries in the region. The study found that Sri Lanka was the only country among those surveyed to receive more favourable than unfavourable ratings from all three foreign publics. According to the findings, around half or more of respondents in Bangladesh, India and Pakistan expressed positive views of Sri Lanka, while a third or fewer held negative perceptions. Pew Research noted that Sri Lanka stood apart from other regional nations by maintaining a consistently positive image across all countries surveyed. The report highlighted sharp differences in regional perceptions of other South Asian countries. While India received overwhelmingly positive ratings in Sri Lanka, it was viewed far less favourably in Pakistan and received mixed ratings in Bangladesh. Pakistan was viewed positively by many respondents in Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, but received very low favourability ratings in India. Researchers also found that Sri Lanka's popularity has improved over time. Favourability toward Sri Lanka among Indians increased by 6 percentage points since 2024, while positive perceptions across the wider region remained strong. The survey additionally revealed that Sri Lankans hold particularly favourable views of India, with 79% expressing a positive opinion of the neighbouring country. India was also named as Sri Lanka's most important ally by 63% of Sri Lankan respondents. Pew Research conducted interviews with 2,513 people in Sri Lanka, 3,566 in India, 1,044 in Bangladesh and 1,039 in Pakistan between February and May 2026. The study forms part of a broader examination of regional relationships and perceptions among South Asian nations.
Total debt for the United States has passed $40 trillion for the first time, raising concerns that the country is facing a fiscal crisis as government spending outpaces revenue.
Stevin Machado brings us the latest details from overseas.
Yes, thank you very much, Sandaru and Mitra. Now, the U.S. Treasury Department says that the total U.S. debt has topped $40 trillion for the first time. Now, this figure has drawn fresh warnings that a fiscal crisis is brewing as ballooning costs for social safety net programs and interest payments far outstrip revenues held back by tax cuts. The U.S. Treasury's latest daily cash and debt balances statement showed total public debt outstanding at US dollars 40.047 trillion on Tuesday, a total that includes Treasury securities held by the public of US dollars 32.26 trillion and intragovernmental debt holdings of US dollars 7.782 trillion. The federal government's IOU has now more than doubled in less than a decade from US dollars 19.95 trillion when President Donald Trump was sworn in for the first time in January 2017. The rise reflects years of heavy spending under both administrations of US President Donald Trump and former US President Joe Biden, along with higher interest payments that have steadily added to the total. In 2016, the national debt stood at just under US dollars 20 trillion. The Congressional Budget Office had projected overall borrowing would reach US dollars 39.6 trillion only by the end of fiscal year 2026. The faster than expected rise has sharpened concerns about how quickly the government's borrowings needs are growing and what that means for future interest costs. The CBO says the US is nearing its US dollars 41.1 trillion debt ceiling, with debt projected to climb about US dollars 64 trillion by 2036.
Australia passed legislation that will force tech giants to pay millions of dollars in levies if they fail to strike commercial deals with local media outlets for news on their platforms. The news bargaining incentive taxes companies 2.5% on their advertising revenues unless they strike agreements. Now, proceeds from the scheme would be directed to local Australian news outlets whose content helps drive user engagement and advertising revenue on the tech firms' platforms.
Australia's Parliament passed the new bargaining incentive, closing a 5-year argument that began when Meta worked out it could avoid paying for news by simply not carrying any. The new law removes that option. Platforms with a significant search or social media service in Australia and more than about 178 million US dollars in local advertising revenue now faces a levy of 2.5% on that advertising revenue, whether or not they host a single news story. When the government first set out the scheme, the rate was 2.25% and the list of names has grown since. Meta, Alphabet's Google, TikTok and Microsoft's LinkedIn are the companies in scope. LinkedIn was added in early August alongside the rate increase, which the government presented as a technical adjustment, but the industry did not. The tax is not really meant to be collected, but it is designed as a price on refusing to negotiate, and a platform can reduce or eliminate it by striking commercial agreements with at least 8 Australian news businesses. Those agreements are then set against the bill at a favourable rate. Deals with large publishers count at 150% of their value, deals with small and medium-sized outlets at 200%, and no single deal can offset more than a quarter of a platform's total liability, which is the clause that stops one very large check to one very large publisher from settling the whole thing.
Poor planning or the harsh reality of war. Reported conditions on the USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier during its record-breaking deployment have sparked the latest round of debate over how the administration of US President Donald Trump is handling the US-Israeli war with Iran.
The recent attention, experts told Al Jazeera, has underscored the limits of US naval might amid the conflict, which has entered a grinding stalemate and shown no signs of a more complete cessation after nearly 6 months. The situation has highlighted issues of resupply in a region where US military sites have been bombarded throughout the war, provoked questions over the Navy's constraint in a prolonged asymmetrical conflict, and added to growing signs of military strain that experts warn could harm US deterrence in other arenas. Unlike the reported shortages of both key offensive and defensive munition stockpiles, the reported conditions on board the USS Lincoln have related to crew morale, shortages of basic supplies and maintenance issues. Several family members have recounted concern over loved ones' well-being to US media, including troubling instances of personnel attempting to jump overboard. Democratic lawmakers have charged that this has been a pattern throughout the Trump administration's leadership during the war, with similar conditions reported on the USS Gerald Ford, which was deployed for 326 days before its rotation in May, and the USS Lincoln, which has been deployed since November 2025, during which time it broke the naval record for the longest period without a port stop. A widely circulated New York Times report has tied the supply shortages to Iranian attacks on US military sites in the Middle East, notably the heavy damage inflicted on the naval base in Bahrain in the early days of the war. A US military official told the newspaper that the Navy has been forced to use the Indian Ocean island of Diego Garcia as its main supply hub. The island is located about 3,540 kilometers away from where the USS Lincoln and a second aircraft carrier, the USS George H.W. Bush, have been operating near Iran.
In more news from overseas, the founder of China Evergrande Group, the world's most indebted property developer, was sentenced to life in prison by a Chinese court today, 5 years after the firm's collapse shook the nation's economy and financial markets.
Hui Kayang, once Asia's richest man, pleaded guilty in April to 8 charges, including misuse of funds, fundraising fraud, illegally taking public deposits, illegally extending loans, fraudulently issuing securities, and bribery. Evergrande, once China's premier developer, has defaulted on most of its $300 billion in liabilities, its troubles, symbolizing a crisis in the property sector that has long dragged on the world's second biggest economy. The sentence in the southern city of Shenzhen, which included confiscating all of Hui's personal property, ends his rags to riches story, but is unlikely to bring much solace to Evergrande's domestic and foreign creditors. In addition to his sentence, the court said it had fined Evergrande 8.82 billion yuan, which is equivalent to $1.31 billion, and its main subsidiary Hengda 7 billion yuan, and sentenced 5 other senior executives to fines and prison terms ranging from 6 to 18 years.
Day 1 of Sri Lanka Navy's annual Commandant's Cup International Sailing Regatta 2026 got off today in the Sea of Sri Lanka.
Onelka, what is the latest coming in from Trincomalee?
Yes, Sumitra. Now, the 2026 Commandant's Cup Sailing Regatta, organised by the Sri Lanka Navy, got underway today off the picturesque shores of Sea of Sri Lanka, Trincomalee, bringing together some of the region's finest sailing talent for 3 days of high-intensity competition. The Maharaja Media Network is the official media partner of the prestigious event.
Conducted by the Sri Lanka Navy's Naval and Maritime Academy, this year's edition of the 2026 Commandant's Cup Sailing Regatta marks the 6th staging of the annual International Regatta, which has steadily grown into one of Sri Lanka's premier maritime sporting events, taking place in the Sea of Sri Lanka.
Sailors from 6 countries are battling it out here in the Dutch Bay, at the Dutch Bay here in Trincomalee, and as we can see, they are giving an intense competition. They are battling it out for the trophy, and this competition will run until this Saturday.
Athletes from Bangladesh, Italy, China, India, Indonesia and Sri Lanka have converged in Trincomalee to compete for top honours, transforming the eastern coastline into a vibrant arena of skill, speed and strategy. The opening day featured preliminary races with sailors testing their abilities against challenging sea conditions while positioning themselves for the decisive rounds to follow.
Stay tuned with Newsfirst Sirasa TV as we will give you more updates about what's happening here. And as I said earlier, this is a very intense competition. 6 countries, 1 trophy, and let's see who's going to battle it out, who will emerge victorious on the 23rd of August.
And with that, we wrap up news for tonight.
Thank you for watching. Good night.